Okay, we'll call to order the meeting of the Community Safety for Tuesday, April 13th at 4 o'clock. Everybody is present. So motion on the minutes, moved, seconded. All those in favor, contrary, carried. Our next meeting will be May the 11th, and we have the agenda, and I'd like to add under manager's report a referral to staff regarding residential lighting. And Carly and Cecilia, maybe we can get some guidance on that when we get there. So if you add that, does anybody else have anything they'd like to add to the agenda this time? If not, we'll leave it open. Comes to mind, bring it up. Okay, item number one is the property use monthly activity on February. Carly, you're on for your report. Anything to add, anything to highlight?
No, I am happy to take questions from the committee.
Okay, seeing none. Okay, obviously, I'm sorry, I did.
Oh, I think Councillor Wolf.
Oh, Michael, sorry, thank you. Okay, you're up in the corner here on my screen. Thank you, you're on.
Thank you very much. Through the chair to staff, just a couple short questions. And first one's about, on page number 10, it talks about unsightly premises. I'm just curious, is there any breakdown for that? Is it just residential, non-ALR, or does that include all types? And is there one dominant type in the mix?
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Wolf. First of all, I can tell you that category includes all property types. So all property types that we get complaints about for non-compliance with the unsightly bylaw. I can tell you that it is seasonal. So for example, in the spring and summer, the majority of those calls will be about long grass. Outside of the spring and summer, the majority of calls are real range, mostly just people like garbage on their lot, just not maintaining, keeping their yard unsightly, as it implies. Sometimes derelict vehicles, really a lot of different things.
Thank you. Then to follow up through the chair and staff on that same point, do we have a map that shows the common locations over the last 5 years, say, where it's been the complaints have come from? And then in relation to that, what if it's the side of a road that's not the property that's the let's say a business that receives plastic waste garbage and it comes out and it blows all over the street and the company cleans up their area but it goes elsewhere? What if there's a complaint, unsightly premises, on the side of a road which is city or provincial land? Does that factor into this?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Wolf, we would actually classify that as boulevard maintenance as well. So our boulevard maintenance bylaw, that's the bylaw that requires property owners to keep the boulevards adjacent, the city property essentially, adjacent to their properties. Sorry. The city property adjacent to their properties clear of garbage and discarded materials. So that would show up in your boulevard maintenance. So that is a bylaw, just not the unsightly premises bylaw.
Perfect. Then to follow up on that again, what if it's a city property that's on the river side where there's no residents on that front? It's just the edge of the road, and then the river.
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, I mean, that would clearly be the city, under bylaw, that would be the city's responsibility. However, our bylaw officers are trained to do a decent amount of problem solving. And if they were able to determine, especially in the cases you described where it's clearly coming from one business, they are instructed to go and talk to that business. Again, it would be tough to prove, hold them responsible to a bylaw, but that does not prevent us from going out and doing our educational reports, talking to them, getting them to pick it up, coming onto their property and looking for other issues. I mean, I think that we're fairly decent at following up if we can identify a source, even though maybe it's not governed under the bylaw.
Then thank you for the response. I'm not sure if I need further education on this or more details of what that process looks like to feel if we have enough in the bylaw to support staff Because to me, and my comment about the map, if there was a map that would show where problem areas have been identified historically, and they're right across the road from a recycling plant, then maybe we can get it addressed and have some evidence to back it up. So I'm not sure if there could be maybe a further memo or communication with me on this.
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, I think that we don't need more bylaws. What we need to be able to do in that case is have evidence. So we don't, the bylaws do say that you can't litter and you can't do these sorts of things. We still need evidence. I don't think a bylaw change provides evidence because we already say that you're responsible for the boulevard fronting your property, whether you put the garbage there or not. Doesn't matter. If someone else threw the if someone else is responsible for making your boulevard, out of order, the property owner is required. So we don't have to have evidence for that. The scenario you're talking about, where there's potentially, garbage and discarded materials across the street, that's a different bylaw. It does make the person who threw the garbage responsible, but we have to have evidence in order to hold them, in order to take them to court and pursue action. If we have evidence, we have lots of action we can take. If we don't have evidence, we can still go and speak to who we think, is doing that. And if it's an ongoing problem, there is other things that we can do to deal with that business. So it would be my opinion that no bylaw change would make that process any easier.
Oh, okay, I appreciate that. Then I won't further any questions on that. Thank you, Chair, to allowing me to continue there. I'll work on the evidence front in other ways. The final question I had was on number 11. There was a couple stop work orders related to soil removal, and there was one that I was about to call in, the one on McClellan Avenue, but then the second time I went to look at it, there was a city vehicle right in front. Are you able to, I asked this last month, provide any more details to the commonality or the consistency of the type of reasons for stop work orders in these two cases?
Well, I think that through the chair to Councillor Wolf, we had a debate. I heard you last meeting, and we had internal discussion about the amount of material that I can put in a public report. So this is a public report, and I need to be cautious. It would be the same with a memo, because in this case they were not breaking the bylaw. We caught them before they did. We caught them bringing material on before they exceeded the exemption limit. So they were bringing a couple truckloads on, and we stopped them. So they actually didn't break the bylaw, and I'm very happy to hear that. I'm always happy when we educate someone before they go too far, and I'm happy to hear that our staff was there before you needed to call it in. I think these things do happen from time to time. I'm not sure if the owner even intended to break the bylaw. We just made sure that we warned them and that they didn't go any further.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, Jack? Can you open Jack's mic?
Yes, I want to ask a question, because earlier on the discussion was about dumping on public grounds. Now, what if somebody dumps some garbage or furniture or something onto your property, and there's evidence, it's being videotaped, the license plate, the person was caught in action. Who can help them? I know the answer. I know the answer is, oh yeah, this is private arrangement, but it's on private property. Can somebody help them?
Okay.
Through the chair to Councillor Al, unfortunately, if someone comes and dumps garbage on your property, our city bylaws hold the property owner responsible. If you have evidence of who put it there, then that's a civil matter, and that property owner can pursue that through a civil process court. Our bylaws and the authorities that cities are given are to hold the property owner responsible, unfortunately. However, we're happy to work with property owners to help them understand that and to give them the information we have. So in the event we had information, we would happily share that with the property owner.
Well, I think that's the frustration of many people. Yes, it's being regarded as civil, right? It's not really a city matter. However, to go through a civil dispute, it takes time. It's consuming. It costs money. So I don't know. I can say that I've come across people who are very frustrated by that process.
Yeah.
That yes, there's evidence. It's caught, that nobody can help them.
But that's the answer, obviously.
Mm-hmm. The one thing that I can offer is that our bylaw staff see this a lot. But they see this, and this happens from time to time, and in their career they've seen it a lot. And they're happy to work with property owners to help them understand what they can do to harden their property. So we often have discussions with property owners about ways to make their property less inviting to dump garbage. We do have experience with that, and so we often offer suggestions about how to stop people from putting that onto your property. And also, when it comes to enforcement, that's why we have an education first. So, for example, we're not, if we find something happen and we think someone's being victimized, we have the option, because we take an education, to work with them and not go straight to hardline bylaw enforcement and ticketing. So we do have the ability to give some leeway to property owners experiencing that.
So we don't have a general littering bylaw within Richmond.
Through the chair, I believe we do. So when I work with Suzanne Bycraft's crew in pickup, when they're picking up abandoned garbage and litter, if they see anything that would provide evidence as to who put it there, like someone throws all their garbage and they see names, they contact us. They contact bylaw enforcement so that we can collect the evidence and do the court process.
Okay, good. Any other questions? All right, seeing none, the motion to receive for information, moved, seconded. All those in favor, contrary, carry. Thank you, Carly. Okay, next item on the agenda is our parking enforcement and animal services on page 14 to 21. Susan, we got Susan on here?
Yes.
Well, I'm looking on my screen, that's all. Okay, there you are. Yep, gotta find you. Got two screens. Okay, anything to add? Anything to highlight?
Nothing to add. Happy to take any questions.
What about the dog licenses? What's the potential for dog licenses in Richmond, and what was our peak year? I see we're up to 5,735, but what is the potentiality if everybody got a license this year?
Through the chair, it's currently we'd be looking at close to 8,000 licenses.
8,000.
We're right we're currently in our process of canvassing for dog licenses.
Good. Okay. Councillor McPhail. Linda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to staff. I just wanted an update on the transition from RAPS to BCSPA. I mean, the report, you have an analysis, and just anecdotal. Was it a smooth transition in your opinion then?
Through the chair to Councillor McPhail, yes, it's been a very smooth transition, and we've been working very well with the SPCA.
Thank you. Good to hear.
Okay, Carol. There, good.
I was going to ask a similar question as Councillor McPhail. I was just wondering how the level of service has changed or stayed the same in terms of more or less officers out. Like I noticed on the map that they had gone to a number of parks, the Gary Point Park and whatnot, and Terra Nova Park. So are we getting more or less service?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, we're getting more service due to the fact that there's more officers working with the SPCA. So we currently have 4 officers that are attending to calls. So they're able to attend more parks and attend more calls for service in regards to animal control issues.
All right, that's good news. Thank you very much.
Okay, Michael.
Thank you. Through the chair to staff, my question is about the communication that we received to the mayor and council's email about parking and ticketing in Burkeville. This was dated April 1st, and there was a staff response. It was all in a package here for us, and Susan was the reply. My question is related to So this is in the report that relates to parking enforcement. And my question is, the images that were included in that, it shows a bunch of like different cars parking where there's a ditch and two wheels are on the road. Is there any situation anywhere in Richmond where that is allowed, where you can have two wheels on pavement and two wheels off pavement and have a ditch beside you?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, my recollection of the pictures, I don't have them right in front of me, but I believe the ditches were filled in those pictures.
Not all of them. There were some that were definitely ditches there. Yeah.
Yeah. Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, the tires have to be on the boulevard side of the parking, and two tires can be on the other side if there is enough allowance. If the ditch is small enough and there's enough pavement between, or gravel on the shoulder between the ditch and the roadway, then yes, it would be allowed. If the two wheels were off onto the shoulder.
But not, sorry, through the chair to step, but not if those two wheels were on any pavement.
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, those, in this particular instance, those tires were, all four tires were on the roadway, hence why the ticket was issued.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. That's fair. So I'm trying to clarify because there's a lot of issues with parking in Burkeville and Hamilton. These are areas where there's limited access for parking, so people are taking what they can get. Last night we denied a liquor store in an area where I already saw parking full, just picking up building supplies on a weekend. So to add extra parking problems where there's no options around, and these are residential areas where you can't even park to get to in your house. So the fact that there's so much confusion around that, and the fact that there's some of these locations like Burkeville, when I visited, there were no signs in places that said no parking. And I think it's needed in areas where it looks like you can park, where historically people have parked. I think we need to work on next year having a budget item where we fund more no parking signs for this whole stretch with the arrow going forward, and it ends at the intersection. So that information's out there, because right now it's not clearly not working across the city, that information. So thanks.
Okay. Harold?
Chair to Councillor Wolf.
Go ahead.
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, I did speak to the complainant, and I have also spoken to engineering, who's currently working in Burkeville on a capital project, and transportation in regards to our going forward parking enforcement. We'll be going through, when we're called in on a complaint to Burkeville. We will be attending for all complaints, as we do throughout the city, but issuing warnings when it's not a safety matter, such as a no stopping or blocking a driveway or fire hydrant, because we realize that the parking situation in Burkeville is limited, and with the capital project currently proceeding, it's made that even tighter for the residents within the community.
And thank you. And that, as the chair heard in the last item, education first. And I think the warning in those situations is definitely warranted. So that's very positive to hear. Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Harold?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm really pleased with the fact that the West Pike near my place and Gary Point are finally being patrolled. I used to get complaints all the time, and by the time somebody arrived, if they did, the off-leash dog owner was long gone. Yes. So it needs proactive enforcement where officers are there before the events occur. The question I've got is that it talks about public education. Would that mostly be about off-leash dogs, or what would that be?
Through the chair, Councillor Steeves, yes, the SPCA officers are carrying with them brochures that speak to off-leash, as that and at large are our two number one violations, and the SPCA and community bylaws are working on an education program through pamphlet distribution and social media.
Okay, that's fantastic, because I put complaints in for the last few years and got no response. So I'm really pleased to see that. And I know there was some verbal warning, so I gather some people were carrying on a little further than they should too. So it's nice to see.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anything else in the report or any questions to Ms. Lloyd? Seeing none, motion to receive for information. Move seconded. All those in favor, contrary carried. Good, thank you, Susan. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, Fire Rescue Monthly Activity Report. I believe we got Jim Wishloff here in,
Tim Wilkinson.
Deputy Chief.
Tim Wilkinson.
Or we got everybody?
No, just Tim Wilkinson is here.
Oh, Tim Wilkinson's here too. Okay, sorry I don't have you on my screen. Now I do. Have your picture, no name. Okay,
All right.
you're on.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have nothing to add to the report, but please, any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Oh, great report.
Thank you.
All right, Carol, you're on. Carol?
Thank you very much to the chair, to Mr. Wilkinson. I'm really pleased that you added the fire hall locations to the new incident map. It makes it really easy to understand where the events are and how well positioned the fire halls are in most cases. So I just wanted to compliment you on that. It's far better visual when you're looking at the map. And then I was wondering, I've heard over and over again about the poor ambulance service, that they're just run off their feet. Is there any way that in a non-emergency situation, if needed, that first responders, firefighters could transport a patient to the hospital if need be?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, no. The legislation is very clear around transportation at this time. In fact, transportation even means lifting people. We oftentimes do a lift assist for, people who are stuck at home and they've fallen out of bed, for example. And even those types of public service events sometimes puts our staff in conflict with legislation. We do it. We're not wishing to get into conflict with BC EHS. However, the ambulance will not attend those types of calls anyway. So it's a difficult issue, but we often work it out. We have wonderful BC ambulance staff here in Richmond, and our co-joined station allows us to have so many great conversations and work through these issues. But proper transport, no, that's going to be one line too far.
Just a follow-up question to the chair, if you don't mind. So my father fell, and we had to get him to the hospital from the care home, and we hired the patient transfer service. It costs about $100, which is what you end up paying for the ambulance anyhow. Are the firefighters that attend an incident able to provide information regarding the patient transfer service that's available here in Richmond?
I believe we would be able to provide that information if we had. We would have to provide a holistic list, if you will, so that we're not favoring any one particular company and not recommending, right? Like, we don't want to get into the position of recommending a particular business one over another. We value all our businesses here in Richmond. I know you do. And so we tread a very careful line there.
Then I would put that request in, that it makes a comprehensive list of the patient transfer services available in Richmond. I don't think I need a motion for this to the chair. You can, I think it's just a recommendation, a suggestion, and then provide that list to people, because I've heard about people waiting like 3, 4, 5 hours for an ambulance to finally be free in a non-emergency situation and transfer that person to the hospital. So given that the service is available, and once you do the math, it's actually the same price. And then you get going and you get to the hospital, and it's just better for the patient.
Maybe you could provide us with that list, like a confidential one, and before we make it public, and then decide what to do with it after that as a committee. Okay, then it doesn't put you on the spot. Okay.
No, we can do that and supply it through a memo.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anything else, Carol? You okay now? Okay,
That's it, thank you.
Okay, Linda?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to the chief on our CS24 in Table 1, the hazmat, they've gone up 50%. And so just wondering, is that a trend? Is it, what kind of incidents then? Like, of course, we know drug houses or, those. So was there a run on something right now, or?
Through the chair to Councillor McPhail, I think sometimes the numbers or the percentages start to look more than they are. It's really 5 additional calls throughout the whole month. So, no, there's not a particular trend. I think the city is getting more busy, and we do have many more businesses that transport all sorts of goods. In the most part, these were minor hazmat events. Everything impacts the environment, and we don't want that. But there are things like diesel spills from a traffic accident, and we had a couple of those which were pretty significant in terms of even if a semi-trailer tips over, that's a lot of fuel, and it becomes it's in the ditches, and then it becomes a big deal, and we bring our hazmat team in to mitigate that and isolate it as quickly as we can. So there's not a particular run, but we certainly do want to keep our eyes on that.
So thanks for that explanation. I always just think of hazmat incidences as being very serious. So it's good to know that there is a range in the seriousness as it was. Thanks very much.
You're most welcome.
Okay. Michael, I saw your hand up, but did you take it down?
Well, I could ask it now or later. It was just a quick update about the April 9th natural gas leak. I'm not sure if you were going to share that in the briefing. I didn't see it as one of your items. I know it wasn't in your monthly report, that's why I took my hand down. Is there any more information available publicly now or not yet?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, I don't have a huge amount of information, but it was a major break in a major main gas line, and so it was significant, and there was problems. It did require digging up the entire road surface and getting right down to the main pipe and shutting it off. So it did run for a considerable period of time before the gas could be turned off. There was no simple fix here. Our roads crews and there was many groups throughout the city came together to fix that.
Great. My question then is through the chair to staff is on the preparation. Like, do we have staff capable? Did we have hazmat suits for everyone involved? What was the level of preparedness for an incident at that scale?
We have, to be honest, a natural gas leak's not a big deal to us. We deal with those regularly. Things where you would see us in a level A hazmat suit, the big puffy one that you see in pictures. We don't have a lot of those events, fortunately. But our team is well prepared. They're well trained, well equipped. In fact, last year, Council funded a capital project on the purchase of a spectrometer, which allows us to determine the types of hazards that we have in a quick fashion. And we have all the tools we need. Thank you for asking. We do have all the tools we need, and we are well trained and ready to take on those kind of events.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else on the report? Any other questions of the chief? Motion to receive for information. Move seconded. All those in favor, contrary, carried. And Chief, you got a couple of briefing notes here for us?
I do, Mr. Chair, and if you'll allow me one additional one. First of all, I just wanted to keep up to speed on what we're planning to do with emergency programs. Next month, you would have planned to see the quarterly report, and you will see that quarterly report as you always would have. the months following, we will have information in our every month report for you. So rather than doing it quarterly, you'll get something in the fire briefing that keeps you up to speed on a monthly basis and emergency programs. Secondly, we're really pleased to tell you that our public education has taken another great leap. We've hired a wonderful person, Kylie McDonald, from Vancouver Fire, who has a big background and basis in public education, and so she has already come on board with us and started to do great work. So that program is going to ramp up even more, and she has a really great background in social media and all of those great pieces that we're really working on now.
Great.
Finally, some really great news. We've been working hard in the background, our whole team, to get our firefighters vaccinated. And I just got off a phone call prior to meeting with the committee, telling us that Richmond Fire will be one of the very first teams vaccinated. Our staff will be able to sign up for the voluntary immunization starting on Friday. And our whole team, there is enough vaccine for our whole team to be vaccinated throughout the following week, the week of the 16th. And this program will include police and fire. Richmond Police RCMP will also be in it. All school teachers and school staff members are in this same program with the firefighters. So exciting. All of those people will be vaccinated within a 5-week period.
Excellent.
Starting.
Good news. Good news.
So wonderful news, and so we're excited to let you know about that.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Any other questions of Chief? Thank you for the good news, and thank you for all the news. Great job. Keep up the good work. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the RCMP Detachment Annual Performance Plan and Priorities. And we've got Chief Superintendent Will Ing. Okay. You're on. Anything to add, obviously, or go over or highlight to us? I like the annual performance plan which you've got laid out, so I'll leave it to you.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chair. As in previous years, we did a stakeholder consultation, both externally, internally, and also did a Let's Talk Richmond online survey. And we've identified 4 priorities, and it should look familiar to our committee, which is property crime. 53% of respondents indicated that was one of the main concerns. Organized crime, 45%. Road safety, 51%. And mental health remains a priority for our detachment, as we've also seen significant successes with respect to our Fox 80 car. Year to date, we've had a minus 24% in calls for service in Richmond, which is we consider a significant success for our mental health initiative.
Any questions? A great report, great detail there. Well, seeing none, there's a recommendation that the priorities be supported, moved, seconded. All those in favor, contrary, carried. Thank you very much. Keep up the good work. And the monthly activity report for February. We have on page 41. And anything to add or subtract or highlight?
Mr. Chair, the stats were good for February. The only upticks you will notice is in the serious assaults and sexual offenses. In total, there were no trends and patterns related to either one. With the serious assaults, the victims and the offenders were known in over half of those cases.
Okay. Any questions? Carol.
Thank you very much to the chair. So thank you very much for the chart on CS45. I found that really useful. It compared Richmond to other Metro Vancouver cities, and that's the kind of information we need the public to see, that we're actually doing quite well. I think it just gives people more sense of comfort in the community. Then I noticed that regarding the mental health calls, and you were just talking about how they're down 24%, that's fabulous, but the police officers are stuck at the hospital for 72 minutes on average, trying to hand over the patient to the hospital staff. And then I noticed in the last report that the volunteer deployments have been very limited. Is there any way we could assign a volunteer RCMP auxiliary officer to do that, sort of sitting on the person at the hospital instead of having one of our RCMP officers there?
Thank you, Councillor Day. Through the chair, we've had many discussions with respect to how we triage our mental health clients at the hospital. And we've had discussions about, of course, a secure room with the ER staff, just to provide a holding facility, because we have had a lot of problems with some of the clients that have been quite combative and violent. And in one case, had utilized box cutters to threaten the hospital staff. So we don't want to expose our auxiliary, officers to that type of violence, especially because they're volunteers. And we really need to have a very we need to have sufficient officers. In fact, sometimes we usually have multiple officers with one client, just to ensure that there is no violence, or at least there's enough officers available to manage that risk to public safety. And of course, we stay there for the duration until they're assessed and evaluated by the psych doctor. Either they're admitted or they're discharged. But we usually stay until that decision is made for that reason. And right now, the hospital is working on building a holding room just to provide some more safety for their staff. But it's still a work in progress, and I think COVID's kind of slowed down the progress in relation to build that room. But we're still doing our best to manage and try to reduce those call times. I will say, though, that the mental health car has been successful in being proactive, getting out in the community, working with ACT teams to get ahead of the problem before it becomes a crisis situation. So we're ensuring that our clients are getting the appointments that they need, they're getting the medication that they need before they get to a point where it becomes a crisis.
Well, that's just wonderful news. Would a letter from council to the province asking for funding for this holding room in the interest of safety be any use or help to the situation?
Thank you, Councillor Day. I believe that would be a question to Vancouver Coastal Health, but they to see if they have funding or not to build that room. I'm not sure if funding is the issue.
You think it might be a space issue?
I hear that they're doing some renovations at the ER, so I'm not sure, but I can find out and get back to you on that.
Thank you.
Okay. Michael?
Great. Thank you. Through the chair to Chief Superintendent Ng. Just one concern and question. Seeing the uptick on the page 53 which is our statistics page, and like you mentioned, on sexual offenses being the largest increase, outlined a bit more on page 44, was saying it was like a 33% increase from previous month, more than double what we had last February. To see that's like the biggest jump leads me to the question on our preparation for going to these cases and providing, if it's a female who's had the sexual offense against her, that we have a female officer or a female municipal support worker, or what is there efforts made where when a witness statement is being given and the description of what's occurred, that there is a female there, especially in the case that it was a female victim?
Yes, Councillor Wolf, through the chair. Absolutely, all our sexual offenses are treated with most care with respect to trauma-informed sensitivities, and we do everything we can to ensure that the victims are provided with a female officer to take those statements. I may add, though, with respect to this statistic, that over 25% of these, the stats, is related to child pornography. And CBSA refers the majority of our child pornography files from screening at the airport, where they look at devices and they actually find child pornography on the device itself, and those are referred to the RCMP. And so our investigators, which we started a sexual offenses unit early last year, they've been extremely busy, and a lot of their work, or the majority of their work, is investigating child pornography. And so that is part of this statistic in relation to sexual offenses. So that's 25%. And of course, the other 6 offenses is related to actual sexual assault, which we do have officers, either female or male, are trained in being sensitive and treating our victims, with utmost regard for their dignity and so forth.
Thank you. Then just to follow up through the chair, just to Chief Superintendent, do we? It's probably simple yes or no. Do we have enough officers with trauma sensitivity training?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Linda. Linda, you're muted.
Oh, is that better?
That's better. Now we can hear you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to the Chief Superintendent. Under the youth section, I just wanted to say I'm really happy to see that the DARE program has been able to continue, albeit virtually, and that the youth section is still going out to schools. And I think it's really important, probably more important now than ever, that those relationships and those contacts are continuing. So thank you for that.
Okay, I was going to echo that as well. I think it's important that you have the officers going not only for the DARE program, but also for the secondary schools, and have the officers show up at the schools. I think it's absolutely imperative that the program, not only here in Richmond, but should be out through the province of British Columbia. Can I jump in and ask a question? On the COVID stats, you find people 51 failure to wear a mask, you charge them, they got a fine of what, $230 or something like that? I think that's the rate. But there was 151 violation tickets, and I'm actually concerned about this. And take it back to Carly and bylaws, gathering, unlicensed drinking, etc., nightclubs and karaoke bars, etc. I thought we were better than that in Richmond, and it only happened in Whistler and a few other places. But 151 is a fair bit. And I guess my question, how many of these were repeat offenders that weren't following the laws? It's almost like the 2 restaurants downtown Vancouver I'm going to open up in spite of it all, too bad, and thumbing their noses at basically the mental health officer, and that kind of behavior concerns me. So I wonder how many of those 151 were repeat offenders. Do we know, Chief?
I believe there's at least a couple events that were similar organizers, or same organizer. One was a licensed karaoke bar, and 4 were unlicensed drinking establishments in industrial complexes. And of course, a majority of those people were found therein and failing to comply with direction against the Emergency Program Act, and so they were fined accordingly. But most of those tickets were people attending the events, actually partaking in the drinking establishment. The organizers were actually fined $2,300. That's one violation ticket. So if we find an organizer, they will be fined. And we've had 6 organizers over the course of February that were fined $2,300 each.
Through the chair, I can add some information. In bylaws, we have been working with the RCMP, and we were made aware of all of these locations that were mentioned. And actually, in all cases, we were able to work with the landlord to kick their tenants out and completely empty the units. And so we met as recently as last week with the enforcement team, the RCMP enforcement team, who informed us that they had seen no further action at these locations after the work that bylaws did to have those tenants removed from those commercial. They were commercial units, not residential units. And so I do understand that while there may be repeat offenders from the actual people attending these parties, we have had success in shutting down the locations where they have occurred.
Well, thank you. That's great work. I, as a resident of Richmond and a long-time resident of Richmond, and also a councillor, take great pride in what Richmond has done in terms of the COVID, in terms of the number of cases we're down, et cetera. And then when people violate other people, as far as I'm concerned, they violate the whole community by doing that. And thank you and the chief for the good work that you're doing, because if I was in your position, I'd throw the book right at them and close and take their business license away from them, to be quite frank with you. Sorry to be a hard line, but I feel very strongly about our community safety in here. So good job, and thank you, and keep up the good work. I don't see any other comments, but does anybody wish to make any? Okay. Thank you very much, both of you, for your input, and thank you, Chief. Motion for information, moved, seconded. All those in favor, contrary, carried. RCMP briefing, anything it's extraneous, it's not on our agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chair, just 2 quick points. Thanks
Right.
To Chief Wilkinson, first of all, for allowing committee to know that we've been approved by Vancouver Coastal Health to have our front line officers vaccinated and select staff beginning on Friday. The second point is we have a new YVR commander, Inspector Kevin Beeson, who started with us last week. For the first time, we will have a inspector on site at YVR to provide some more oversight over, of course, the current provincial health order and also our COVID operations out at YVR.
Great, well done, good job. Okay, anything else? Any managers?
Oh, sorry, one thing on the...
Oh, Michael, sorry. Yeah, this thing switches around here, but go ahead.
No, I apologize. I put my hand up quite late there.
No, you're down.
My question was through the chair to Chief Superintendent. And I'm not sure how much of this is public, so I won't say much. But what's happened in Hamilton? There's been some RCMP presence changes. Can you speak to what the public who live in Hamilton can expect as a result of some of the recent things that have been in the news in Hamilton?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Wolf. Through the chair, is that we've increased our presence in Hamilton. It may have been noticed by all the residents in Hamilton. We felt it was important to support that community, especially following a shooting and then, of course, a double homicide. And we felt that we needed to ensure that the residents felt safe out in Hamilton. So for every shift, we have at least a minimum of 2 additional officers out there to provide visibility, to also provide a deterrence, and to crack down on any crime out there. So far, the program's been working successfully, and really positive feedback from the community. And you also notice that after these violence events, we also had accessibility to the community through our community engagement team that's been out there to talk to the community. It's kind of more like a victim services for the community after a traumatic event. And so they've been out there and engaged, and so far the feedback's been very positive. We had Frank Jang from Integrated Homicide Investigation Team join us on one of those events, and just to answer the questions from the community and to provide that level of comfort. So you'll continue to notice more officers out there. We're currently utilizing the fire hall thanks to a Richmond Fire Rescue that's been able to provide us with some space out there to stop in and to utilize the facilities, and hopefully in the future we'll have a storefront that we can utilize.
Terrific. Then just a follow-up to the chair on that item. Is there any further support from city staff or infrastructure that could be utilized? I know the pop-up tent that was RCMP staff to provide Q&A for the public. It went out to the 5 or 6 block watch in the area, but that only covers, I'm not sure, 50 houses maybe. So is there other avenues or ways that we can promote more people to be involved and be aware? I know with COVID times it's ridiculously challenging, but is there any further support from the city or from this committee that could be made to direct staff to support the challenges that you've seen so far?
Sir, Councillor Wolf, is that a question to me or to...
Cecilia, go ahead.
Oh, sir.
Yeah, through the chair, one of the things we could do perhaps to amplify that is also advertise these events through the city's social media channels, assuming that there's a sufficient advance notice. The other consideration is not to overwhelm the event, because it is, I think the RCMP tried to be quite localized, and my understanding is they've had witnesses of events that came forward to some of these. So if it becomes a little bit too broad, then it becomes more of a community event, and it might actually dilute the effectiveness of the intent. So it's a bit of a fine balance.
I appreciate that. You're both doing a fantastic job on this fine line. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Thank you very much then. Any other managers?
Nothing to add, Chair.
Nothing? Okay. I just like to put on the record a referral. A number of us have been getting questions with regard to exterior lighting in residential. And I know Mr. Craig said it could be dealt with a DP, et cetera, and development permit, but surely somewhere in this country there are bylaws which curtail residential bright lighting, which is affecting other people. We've got bylaws with regard to noise. We got bylaws set. Well, this is a pollution as well, and a discomfort to many people. And I'm not sure what the answer is, but I'd like to refer to staff to at least try to look at it and see if there are any bylaws anywhere in the world that can be brought in to deal with exterior lighting that is, one, pollution, but two, such that it becomes a nuisance to people. I don't even know if we have jurisdiction in this area, but and I'm not so much worried about motion detectors and lights coming on and off when you walk up to a place. I'm more concerned about the permanent lighting and pot lighting that shines down and shines straight out, almost like a laser to a property, et cetera, and you can't shut it off. So I'd like to move referral to staff to examine exterior lighting, a potential bylaw or potential, we'll call it a bylaw or guidelines for external lighting in Richmond.
Second.
Second?
Second.
Yep, thank you very much. All right, Linda, the motion's on the floor.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm not on the committee, but I just wanted to thank you for bringing this forward. I know we have received correspondence from a couple of different people, and I've worked with. So when you say residential, there are lots of circumstances. Of the person that I worked with, she's in a residence on ALR. The neighbor was ALR, but had a corner of the property, had it was rezoned or something for a farm stand, and new farm stand, the lights went into the house. And so, sometimes these get complicated. And So I think that, I don't know if it's expanded to more than residential or, anyways, I guess, I think we need to look at it. As you said, it could be light pollution. I know there was one house, a new home in our neighborhood. I mean, the lighting was beautiful, but it was so bright. I mean, everybody, neighbors for like a 100-foot radius were complaining about it. So I think there needs to be some kind of, I don't know if it's the type of, and the lighting is so different now. It's so much brighter than we ever used to have. So I think something we can look at it for sure. Thanks.
Yep. Michael?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for bringing this forward. I know I've brought this up at previous community safety meetings because I kind of felt it did belong here and not necessarily just at deep development permit panel meetings. So appreciate that to the chair. And so definitely I'll be in support of this item here. I also would be in support of, as we had in our property use monthly report, that there be a line item or a heading, just like we have for noise pollution, but we have it for light pollution. I feel like this, it parallels a few things that the city does with our services. For example, recycling. If people put the wrong things in the bin, they get a sticker with a note saying what was wrong, or they get a sticker on the side of the bin saying you're a superstar recycler. I think we almost need a campaign, and maybe after COVID, when we can hire people back, we can get people employed to go to the residents at the night time and observe their night lighting and give people the rating that they deserve for their average night's light expense or light pollution. So I think that's something that might be an innovative strategy to cover all communities and neighborhoods. And I know I brought forth some issues related that the public have brought to me related to golf courses and their lights. There's a lot of jurisdictions involved with Ministry of Transportation, agricultural land. So yeah, definitely complex, and look forward to what comes from this going forward. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And staff, even a memo when you get it, what we control and what we can't control, and we get some legal help too from hopefully Tony when it comes, so we have all the information, and then we can make any decision we can after that and go from there. So thank you very much. It's on the floor. All those in favor? Contrary? Carried. Is there anything else for the benefit of community safety in Richmond for the month of April? Seeing none, thank you very much all. Good meeting, good stuff all. Thank you, staff, and keep up the good work, and let's keep Richmond safe. Okay? Good evening. Go and enjoy.
Thank you.
Okay.